Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I think we're good. Okay. Sorry about that. I got it fixed. We're back up. Welcome to Trying to Live Forever. I am Uncle Buck. Everybody calls me Uncle Buck. That's my name on my other channels. And I am 21 years in on a gastric bypass. So I am here to answer questions, whatever you got, and then we'll answer them and we'll see what's up. So I started at 575 pounds. I am now currently, after 21 years, I am 275. I am 57. My blood work is basically perfect. Blood pressure is good. Everything's good. Life is good. And I can walk you through and tell you all about things. So if you're here and you're watching, put your questions down below. Tell me where you're from, and we'll get started whenever you're ready. You know, they say the worst thing is dead air or no questions or things like that. So I'm just gonna start the first one by telling the story. And I was 36 years old, and I was very large. I was very sick. I was working construction. Was a welder in the steel industry, and my HR guy was in his 60s, and he was a marathon runner. And me and him just for some reason ended up liking each other. And he every time he would come down from corporate, he would stop and talk to me on the floor. Don't know why. We just hit it off one day. And he walked up to me one day out of the blue and said, I just don't want to see you die. And he said, I have a friend that I run with, and he's a doctor, and he does gastric bypasses. Well, I didn't know what a gastric bypass was. Didn't have any idea. Never heard of it. And, it wasn't in my wheelhouse. And he explained what it was. It was a Row bypass. Takes your stomach and moves everything around inside, and it gives you a pouch about that big. And he says it makes it where it physically forces you where you can't eat, where you drop weight. Because that's, if you keep up doing like you're doing, you're going to kill yourself. Because I was addicted. I believe that there isn't any worse addiction out there in the world than food. Now, you can get addicted to anything. You get addicted to drugs, you can get addicted to sex, you can get addicted to cigarettes, alcohol, food, bad relationships. You can get addicted to all that kind of stuff. But it's the analogy that I always used was, say you had a drug addiction or a alcohol addiction, and you had to have that every day to survive. And you put a bowl of whatever it was or a glass of whatever it is that you're addicted to in the middle of the table, and you say, you can't have that. That's not good for you. That's a hard one to do. It's like telling you that you're addicted to air and you can't have air. So I was completely addicted by food. It was not a pretty sight. I was eating 24/7, and I got up there. Like I said, I was working a job that was physically taxing. That was terribly hard on your body. And I was still 575. 573 is what I actually weighed the day of my surgery. And now, after 21 years, I got down to 249, which was the lowest I got. And then I went back up. I had a bad spell about 10 years ago. I went back up to almost 400. And now I'm back down to 275. And I learned a lot of things along the way. I've been up and down. I've done dumb things. I've tried to ruin it. I've, done all the things that you guys have questions about. when it comes to it. So if you have questions, I've done it. I've been through it. And I just would like to help if you have any questions. I don't know if you're asking what I'm drinking. It's a Fresca. It's a diet soda. And yes, you can do carbonated soda after a while. I guess from the channel, the one thing that strikes me the most is that today, when I had mine done, I was in the hospital for 2.5 days. They Baptist Hospital in Little Rock, Arkansas. They had a complete floor. That's all they did. That doctor, all he did was gastric bypasses, and those nurses were the best. And that's all they did on that floor. That doctor had his own floor, and it was different then. Before, now they try to make you lose weight to make sure that you're motivated, and they put you on liquid diet and la 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 la. They do all these kind of things to try to make sure that you truly are going to make the best of what you are getting into. But back then, there was no internet, and this is even before phones. So this was you. I got the invite for the thing. We drove up to Little Rock, and I live in Oklahoma, so it was a 3-hour drive. Drove to Little Rock and there was probably 15 couples, 15 people in the little thing they had to tell you about what was going to happen, what they were going to do, how they're going to reconstruct your stomach. If you were very large, they were going to probably have to cut you open. But if they're trying, the laparoscopic surgery was a thing already then. And if you was capable of doing it, then they were going to do it laparoscopically. But the chance, they didn't know until they got you under, and if they could do it. So you didn't know. You didn't know whether you're going to get gutted like a fish or whether you're just going to have a couple puncture holes in your stomach when you woke up. You just didn't know. The doctor couldn't tell you until you got in there. He said, if you're just there's too much mass there in between your stomach and the outside of your body, then they may not be able to do it, because this is even before they had specialized tools. They were just using what they had. Okay. So that was a concern. And there's always concern. If you're that large, you worry about not waking up from anesthesia, if you're whatever. But at 36, I was done. I was ready. I was ready to have it done. I had not heard about it, but the longer I thought about it after the consultation and the slideshow and everything, that's how old it was. It was a slideshow. It was like a little projector, and telling you about what they were going to do and what to expect on the backside. And there wasn't any talking about food or anything really nutrition wise beforehand. They gave you a whole bunch of paperwork about what to do afterwards. And that was interesting. We went and talked to a nutritionist, which, if you guys know anything about nutritionists, they're always skinny and they always have all the ideas, but they don't really tell you nothing. They just tell you everything that every doctor's told you before, that you should eat less, have more vegetables, and blah 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 blah. I grew up in the 70s, and in the 70s, people weren't overweight. If you were overweight, you definitely had a medical problem. I grew up on the farm, poor, very poor. We ate vegetables, meat, eggs, and dairy. We didn't have money for sugar in the house. We didn't have money for soda. We didn't have money. We didn't. I mean, the only sugar we had in the house was in the sugar bowl, and mom, dad used that for their coffee. There was just no junk food. We couldn't afford it, and there was 5 of us kids, and mom and dad were doing everything they could do to survive. And I was an overweight kid starting in kindergarten. I didn't realize I was overweight till I started kindergarten. But I've just, it's my genetic makeup. I believe there are some people that have the genetic makeup but today's food is treacherous with all the seed oils and all the chemicals and all the preservatives and all the dyes and all the stuff and all the chemicals that get you addicted to that food. It's in the mix. That's why obesity was 10% in the 70s and it's 70% now in the 2020s because of all the junk. You guys have all seen the videos of like McDonald's hamburgers taking a blowtorch to them and they won't burn. That a hamburger that's 20 years old that hasn't molded, that hasn't decayed. That you're putting that garbage in your system. And I wasn't raised on it, and I didn't have it. It wasn't available, but I was still an overweight kid. It was just my cards that God dealt me. Okay, so, but I did a lot of dumb things to not pay attention to it. I really did. I figured as long as I'm moving, as long as I'm doing a job that's beating the hell out of my body, then I'm okay. But by 33 or so, my blood pressure started going. My joints started hurting. And I was working 50, 60 hours a week and going to the gym powerlifting. I mean, my frame is tailor-made for powerlifting. I'm 5'11", and I've never had a broken bone in my body. I had a bone scan just a couple of years ago, and I still have the bone structure of a very young person. Thick, heavy, strong, never had a broken bone. I had a lot of things happen to me that I should have had broken bones, but never broke a bone, not a single one. It's just in my DNA. I truly believe that in my DNA. There's some people out there, it's in your DNA. That's why the lowest I got was at 249. That was the lowest I hit. And I think that's just because of bone structure and musculature. I'm not a small person. I've always had big legs, muscular, strong, move a house, bench press, 350, squat 500. I never had a problem. I've always been strong. Growing up on a farm, you are strong, because you're working and you're moving. And even as a kid, when you were a kid back then, you were out the door at dawn and not back in until dark, running 24/7 and not worrying about food or anything. But I was still an overweight kid. The calories just weren't there, but my system just stores. Okay. So that's why the diet soda, that's why the Splenda in my lifestyle. That's why I don't buy the junk and I don't put it in the house. And that's why I'm still a meat and potatoes guy today, because that's where the nutrition is. And not the junk food. I haven't had McDonald's in months. There was a time in my life where I had McDonald's 3, 4, 5 times a week. I'll tell you what, at my worst, I'll tell you what my diet was like at my worst. I had to be up at 4:45 to be at work at 6. So I would get up and I would eat a dozen eggs and toast and jelly and jam and all that kind of good stuff. And then I'd go to work, and we had a 9 o'clock break, and I'd eat a full meal at 9 o'clock. And then we'd have a lunch break, and I'd eat a full meal at lunch break. And then I'd get off at 3:30, and I would stop at McDonald's on the way home, and I would have, this is back supersize days, this when they started the supersize shit. Okay, now I would have the big Coke, I would have the huge fries, I would have a Big Mac and a double quarter pounder with cheese at 4:15, and then I would eat supper at 6, which would be something huge, and then I would have something to eat at 8 o'clock, and then I'd be in bed by 9:30. That was, the snacking in between. That was a typical day for me, and like I said, my health, in my 20s, blood pressure was good, everything was okay. But there towards the end, it was bad. It was bad. Everything started climbing. Everything started hurting. And old Wayne, he come and knocked on my door. And by the time I had time to think about it and go into it, yeah. When they come in and they said, Mr. Slater, are you ready to go? And I said, hell yeah, let's get it done. I was ready. There was no, I didn't have any, I didn't sleep the night before in the hotel room before going. Had to be there at 6 a.m. Minnie, hush. I have a whining dog. She's a pit, and she gets, come here, baby. Come here, Minnie. Come here. Come on. Come here. Come here. She's not going to shut up until I pet her. Anyway, so, but again, still, even though they said we don't know which way they're going to go, whether it's laparoscopic or they're going to have to, you're either going to wake up with little puncture wounds or a big incision from from navel to chest. Don't know which. And so that was when I woke up. That was nice to just see the 3 little puncture marks on my stomach, and that was a relief. Okay, so we got through that. He could do it. All right, he did it laparoscopically. And then the thing back then is you had to go 24 hours without any liquids, nothing in your stomach at all. 24 hours. And they watch you for infections and they were checking your temperature. But they gave you that nice little every 20-second button, that morphine hit. Bink, hit that button. Bink, hit that button. Hit bink, hit that button. That was nice. And that was 2 days in the hospital. I see somebody else new just came on. So if you are here, tell me your name. Tell me where you're from. Tell me if you have any questions. And back then, they kept you in the hospital for 2.5 days. I had my surgery on Thursday morning, 6 a.m., and they didn't let me out till afternoon on Saturday. But the thing is that you had to get up and you had to move. You had to get up and walk. They made you after... No, let's get back to 24 hours without any water, nothing in your stomach, not even water, And, when they put you under, they put you on diuretics, so you're peeing all the time and you're not getting any water. All right. Just to get excess fluids off of you, and your calves are bruised because they put those non-clotting boots and massaging boots on you when you're under surgery. And, they were back then also made for little people. And my calves were bruised. I walked like an old man and so they had to get up and move. They wouldn't give you any liquids, nothing for 24 hours. And they monitored you close. All right. So the floor that they were being done on was like an X. My room was all the way on the end of one hall. They had a central deal, and they had 4 hallways going off of that, so that the nurses could go look down all the halls from the center section from the nurses, right? And they wanted you to move. So I would get up every chance I felt like it, which was a lot, even at night, because, you're in a strange place and you just had your whole insides rearranged and you're not really in pain. You're just kind of like, this is different. Okay. Something is different. Nothing bad, but something is different. Okay. And so I would walk up to the, at the end of every hall, there was a window. So I would walk to a window, come back through, walk to a window, come back through, walk to a window, come back through, walk to the window. And the nurses, all the shifts, the nurses would just say, all right, Mr. Slater, you're doing great. You're doing good. Just keep walking. That's the best thing you can do. And they were pros. They've been doing it a long time. They were awesome. At Baptist Memorial up in Little Rock. They were just completely awesome. But doing that, I would hear all these people that had the surgery, and they're bitching and moaning and complaining, and they're just like, it never made any sense to me. Why would you have it done if you want to really complain about you're doing something to save your life? There's some things you have to go through. There's some uncomfortableness that you have to go through to truly change your life. Nothing comes easy. All right. So, and I remember that about all the moaning and complaining, and that everybody did that was on that floor. I guess that's why they like me, because I didn't do any complaining at all. I was just up and walking. I was like, let's get this done. I just went through something major to change my life, and let's change our life. So everything went fine, but the thing about the 24 hours, the morning of the Friday morning, they walk in with a cup full of ice chips. And they said, okay, we just want you to take one spoonful and just, and if you've never done it, if you've never been without water for 24 hours, and on Lasix, on top of that, diuretics, your spit becomes thick, like syrup. I mean, literally, it's gross. But that was never the best water I had in my whole life. That was, it just to get it in there and just get, and I didn't swallow the first one. I just rinsed it around my mouth and spit it out. And it was the best thing ever. That's seared in my mind, that first ice chips after 24 hours. That was the best thing ever. Now, the second mouthful, I did just swish around, but I swallowed that one. But the first one I spit out because it was just all I had. I just wanted to rinse my mouth. It was just so bad. And then like another night of observation and more walking, and I've still got the pain pump, and so you're happy as a clam, you're medicated. And then Saturday morning come around and I was ready to go home, because weird space, weird place, and you just had everything done. You just want to get home and get comfortable, because I had they took me off work for 2 weeks. And so I had, 2 weeks to go. I used vacation time and I had 2 weeks to go. And, because the HR guy is the one that set it up, I got okayed on everything. And the insurance at that time considered it medically necessary. So he got the doctor to write a letter to the insurance saying it was medically necessary that I get this done or I was going to die. And that made them pay 80%. It also helped that at the time my employer did their own insurance. So it was rubber stamped. Wayne had took care of it. Was done. And I don't think I got much of a bill on that deal. Today's day, because it's such cookie cutter and they run them in and run them out and as fast as possible assembly line you guys in, that insurance won't touch you. You're coming out of your pocket unless you can get a miracle to happen and get it deemed medically necessary. So after that happened, Saturday morning, woke up. I think I got on Saturday morning. Oh no. After the ice, I think it was unsweet tea, but didn't get any food, no food. I went 7 days without food. That was the protocol 22 years ago. That was the protocol. You went 7 days without food, just liquids. Okay. And your stomach was the size of a shot glass, 1 ounce. And that was legit. All you could do is 1 ounce. And so the protocol, if I'm remembering, I didn't keep the paperwork, but if I'm remembering, you went 7 days liquid only. And then on the 8th day, you started soft foods, which what they considered soft foods back then was basically yogurt, chicken broth, things like that. There was nothing solid at all for 8 days to 14 days. But it's funny if you say that, you think about that, you think about the thing of yogurt, right? It would take me all day to eat a cup of yogurt because you're only doing an ounce at a time, and yogurt's about 4 ounces. So you literally, and you're using a baby spoon. We had kids at the time, and we had some leftovers, and I used a baby spoon for the first, from day 8 to day 14. Okay. And then after that, it was very cooked noodles, very soft cottage cheese, No hard cheeses, no meats. It was all soft foods, mashed potatoes, things like that. And that was for 2 weeks after that. So for the first month, your liquids, soft food, liquids, basically, yogurt and then soft foods for a month. Okay. And I dropped, I think it's 65 pounds in the first month. 65 pounds. I mean, just, just it going on. And the funny part is that you're not going to have a bowel movement for much because nothing going in, nothing coming out. When you break down fat cells, it comes out through your urine. You pee it out. So if you don't have any food going in, you don't have anything coming out, which is something you should know. Because if because when you're ingesting large amounts, you're going all the time, regular, and then it just stops. Okay, so after that month, then it was you could start on just regular foods. And I think my first, and I know this is all bad stuff now, but back then it was made a little different. Back in the 20 years ago, like I think my first actual what you would call meat was Vienna sausage because they were soft. I was scared to try it, but you slowly work yourself back in, but you're still only being able to eat an ounce. But I can tell you, it was 6 months until I had an actual like McDonald's cheeseburger. And the reason I remember this is because I had to drive up to the airport and pick up my grandmother. And I stopped before I left town and I said, okay, it's been 6 months. I'm going to try a hamburger. And I didn't get a Big Mac. I didn't get a quarter pounder. I got a regular 50-cent cheeseburger. No pickles, no onions, just the ketchup, the bun, the cheese, and the patty. And it was an hour and 45-minute drive to the airport. I was picking her up. I could only eat half of it for the whole drive. I ate the other half coming back, and I didn't even finish it. So that's how slow they had you progress, and that was all on paper. It was this week, this day to that day, do this. This day to that day, do that. This day to that way, do this. And I followed it to the letter. And I dropped over 300 pounds in 18 months. 18 months. Like I said, the lowest I got was 249 pounds. And because at that time I was back at the gym, I was working out, and I was, excuse me, I'm trying to sneeze. Allergies down here in Oklahoma are terrible bad. But I was trying to get back strong, and I did. Even on the, they say that you can't do it, but you can, because I've found GNC. And I started having protein shakes and protein bars, and not the crappy ones they have now with all the sugars in them. GNC back then, 20, 25 years ago, they had some really good products. There were some good products out there. They weren't, the industry was not as big as it is now. So it was quality stuff. And to this day, I still use the same protein powder. I haven't been on it for several years now because it's not necessary. I can eat now to, keep my muscle mass up. But Isopure, a whey isolate, not like a protein powder, because regular protein powder has a lot of sugar added to it. Isopure or isolate protein powder doesn't have any extra sugar added to it. It's got flavors, and it's got Splenda in it, but doesn't have any extra sugar. So you get the protein without the extra junk, because the extra junk is what makes it taste good. Now, Isopure is about the best I've found, even after now 20 years of best tasting protein powder, And if you didn't know, this is Fresca. I like my little sweetness every once in a while. So a Fresca or two in the evening is, it's not terribly, terribly bad. But so at that weight, I had a 36-inch waist at 249, 36-inch waist. I had a 49, 50-inch chest. Shoulders, I've always had shoulders because I just grew up on the farm and I've always just had a good thick frame. Good arms, strong, thick legs, just like I said, never had a broken bone. Everything is great. But then I went a long time. I was low a long time. I did a lot of things I never thought I'd do. I went to Vegas for the first time on an airplane and to fit in the chair because, when you're that big, when you walk into a restaurant, you think everybody is looking at you. And kind of everybody is. They kind of are. You're self-conscious about your body. You're self-conscious about everything. And to get down to that size and be comfortable in your own skin was the best thing ever. I mean, that first flying trip was that was in 06. That was a game changer for me. That was a really good day, or a really good week, actually. But during all this, my wife, I watched her work her ass off in the gym. I watched her try so hard, but that addiction is just a monster. It's just terrible. And so she ended up having it done 2.5 years later. And she's had good long-term results. And because I have the partner in my life, 31 years, fixing to be 32 years of marriage, that we've done it together. And that's a big deal, is having someone to talk to about it, having someone to do it together. I truly believe that more people have better results if they had a bariatric buddy. That would, and I did, and it works. It's helpful. And to this day, like when we go out and eat, we don't buy 2 entrees. We buy one and we split it. Because literally, it makes it where it's physically impossible for you to really overeat. Food. Now, I want to talk about the pitfalls. The pitfalls of a gastric bypass is you can drink yourself back into being overweight. A lot overweight. Okay. When I don't mean by alcohol, I mean by liquid calories. Because that's the one thing that you can slip by. Because when they do a bypass, they give you a hole in the bottom of your pouch the size of a dime. And if it won't fit through that hole, you're going to end up having to get rid of it because it'll stick. Your stomach will just literally be sticking. It's like putting a cork in a bottle. If you don't chew your food up good, if you don't do what you need to do to grind it up and get it where it'll pass through that hole, then you're in trouble. And your system is going to want to get rid of it, which means purging. But with liquids, don't have that problem at all. You can, where I got in trouble 10 years ago is I got hooked on McDonald's tea, sweet tea. I was working an office job, which is not good. Office jobs are the devil when it comes to weight loss. Okay. I was working an office job and I got in the bad habit of I would stop for a tea in the morning. I'd get a tea at lunch. I get a tea in the afternoon. I get a tea at night. I'd eat, and those were still to this day 600, 700, 800 calories a pop. And you put that in your body easily. You can suck them right down, and that's 3,000 calories a day upwards in just liquids that you can do yourself some damage. You really can. So If you guys have any questions, I'll be here. I'm going to try to do this Wednesday evenings. I'm going to try to just be here to answer questions for people that are thinking about doing it, people that have had it, people that have had it done and then gained weight, and how to get off of it and get it back off again, because I've done it. Like I said, there's ways around it, because your system, your body at a large weight is used to those calories, and your brain is going to play tricks on you, and you're going to go, oh, well, just this one time won't hurt. This one time turns into 2-3 days in a row. 2-3 days in a row turn into 3 or 4 or 5 months in a row. 4 or 5 or 6 months in a row turns into years. And then it turns into the weight is back on. And you think you wake up one day and you go, what the hell did I do? What just happened? Well, you learn the workaround. And your system is going to, your brain is going to fight you all the way. Every step of the way. Unless you're seriously motivated. That's how I quit smoking 25 years ago. I kept trying and I kept trying and I didn't quit. And it's that old adage of, putting a pebble in a bottle with water. Sooner or later, you put enough pebbles in, you say it, I'm going to do this today. You do that enough times that sooner or later, the switch hits. And then you're off and running. So it can be done, even if you've had it and you've gained it back, you can get it back off. You can. You can get it back off. I believe in you. There is no shame. We've all been through it. We've all thought about all these things that I've talked about and things I haven't talked about yet, which will be the next ones, But I need you to guys show up. I need you, like I said, Wednesday nights Central at 8:00. I'm going to try to do this. This seems to be the easiest way to do, instead of trying to make a video that tries to make views and blah, 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 blah. And the bottom line is, I've said, if you watch any of my videos, if you watch any of them, bottom line, I've always said that if you're willing to try, keep trying. It will work for you. You just got to be willing to try. You just got to keep going. You just got, okay, you got to knock down, get back up, do it again. All right? Y'all have a great day, because great day today can mean better day tomorrow. Y'all be good.